In Seoul, South Korea, at present, Seoul has entrusted its future to only one person. The sky is dark, dusty and bleak. Shiwon stands firmly on the ground. He is the leader of Zhenghua Alliance, named Zhang Shiwon. In front of Shiwon is a boy in full black, surrounded by only corpses. A few rare people without injuries stand from afar, unable to help but exclaim, "Unbelievable, Shiwon's alliance has." The boy in full black sneers, his face cold, says, "In the end, only 2 of us are left, you and me are the ones remaining. You just called the enemy of the world Shin Kanggu." Shiwon is bloody, trembling. But he still struggles to stand up and speak. "Only because of the meaningless battle you started, everyone has to suffer. Just because of a demon like you." As Shiwon utters his last words, he launches an attack. Kanggu not only does not fear, but also disdainfully replies, "Amusing. Who do you think you are, the embodiment of justice?" Shiwon freezes. Kanggu's words make Shiwon unable to control his actions. He angrily rushes to attack. "Shin Kanggu, you dare to mention justice. I fight on behalf of everyone, but you always stand in my way. If you're not a demon, what are you?" The people vigorously agree, they all shout Zhang Shiwon. Upon hearing this, Shiwon is filled with determination. He says, "Because everyone is cheering for me, I will never give up." Shiwon aims straight at Kanggu, puts all the trust of the people into his attack and strikes. Terror is evident on Kanggu's face. Fire rages, people have to cover their faces to protect themselves. Kanggu falls to the ground while Shiwon stands proudly, with Kanggu's face covered in blood. People cheer enthusiastically. "We believe in you, Zhang Shiwon, end that wretch, kill him." Shiwon stands before Kanggu, resolutely says, "No one wishes for your survival, this is the end for you." As Shiwon speaks, he executes his fatal move. Kanggu can only helplessly endure the blow. This attack causes severe internal injuries to Kanggu, blood gushing like a stream. Kanggu lies lifeless on the ground, his eyes gradually dimming. At this moment, Shiwon turns to smile brightly at the people. He says, "Our preparation has borne fruit. Now, perfect freedom will be bestowed upon this land." The people are overjoyed to the point of tears. They say, "At last." Shiwon smiles, pointing towards the sky. The sky suddenly darkens. Eerie lightning flashes. A large hand emerges from the darkness. From the abyss appears a giant hand slowly descending. All the people witnessing the scene are no longer joyful as before, instead, fear has enveloped everyone. But Shiwon appears extremely excited and eagerly awaits what is about to happen. The giant hand suddenly swoops towards Shiwon. But rather than fear, he reveals a smile of anticipation and excitement. And with that simple attack, all that remains is dust and debris flying everywhere. Ultimately the world has perished in such a dull way. But instead, there is an image of a certain hero sitting at a keyboard, thanking the sincere support you have shown. The life of the antagonist has become the savior until now. The reader's expectations must have been shattered completely. Allow me to introduce, the main character, Zhang Shiwon is a lieutenant of the Demon King. He and his gang, the 13 for their loyalty, are high-ranking loyal demons. However, the novel is just a reflection of reality. Based on my school days. A time when the powerful could easily cover up school violence. And the true face of the world, the power that can turn good into evil. So I incorporated that reality into the novel, but below are some feedback from readers. Why is the ending like that? The author should make the main character better. You know you have to die first in order to be like him. Why does the author have to stuff the open ending like that? The author guy thought to himself, probably can't be saved anymore. He exits the website, then sits back down, looking at the messy room, enough to understand the pressure from the terrible readers. He lies down on the bed, thinking about the negative comments and then puts his hand on his head. He remembers the eyebrows that the wrong hand guy destroyed the reader's world. The author guy grits his teeth, helplessly whispers to himself. It's not like that, I can't rewrite it again, just go to sleep. Saying that, he falls asleep. Some time passes, the author guy half opens his eyes and says, "Why so noisy?" When he opens his eyes, he has crossed into the very story he wrote. It is a place with many people, each holding a tool in hand. The author guy still confused, the ground is. Those people yell at the miserable person, "How dare you ignore the grace of the sun?" The author guy thought to himself, did he just say the sun? That sentence accidentally triggered similar memories for him. The author guy thought to himself, damn it, now that miserable guy's name is appearing in my dream. The others continue to harass the weak boy, punching and calling him useless. Just keep that uselessness to yourself. The author guy shouts, "Know when to stop." The other person stops, turns around and says, "I'm wondering who you are. If this weakling can't even handle another second here, what can he do?" The author guy notices something strange. He thinks to himself, "Damn. Why does it hurt in my dream?" Someone comes to stop it. "Okay, forget it. This guy won't reach the target for a long time." The other person still argues, "But first." The author guy thought to himself, "This is really a dream, it feels so real." The other person actually forgives him for a few words from his teammate. When he walks away, he leaves a message, "I'll choose another day and then punch you to death, you wretch." The person who was just beaten looks at him and asks Kangoo, "Are you okay?" The author guy hears this and panics. Kangoo, no, it can't be. Thinking about this, he quickly runs off to find a place to look in the mirror. As soon as he puts his hand on the ground, a light accumulates in his hands. He thinks to himself, "How? The power to absorb mana at will." He raises his hand to see. Sure enough, he was born with innate mana sensitivity. The author guy looks at the face of Kangoo in the water and whispers with resentment, "Damn. Does that mean I am Shin Kangoo? No one else but Shin Kangoo." The person who was beaten earlier wants to ask about Kangoo. And he is still lost in his thoughts. If this guy is still alive, means it's still 5 years before the ending. If I become Zhang Shiwan, at least I will be honored as a hero in the world. But then, everything will end with the devil descending. And only his henchmen will be saved. If I don't change the ending, I will die tragically. The good thing is, I know how to escape from this. A green gemstone rolled to the ground, along with the thoughts of Shin Kangoo at that time, as I thought, when entering someone else's body. Feeling like the past and experiences of Shin Kangoo are all his own. Looking at his profile information table, Shin Kangoo sighed, although he was still at this level. Suddenly, Shin Kangoo's feet could no longer stand and bent down, silently cursing this body. "Damn, my endurance is too weak. I shouldn't have set up a sensitive mana weakness just because he is a new antagonist." Shin Kangoo picked up the mana stone with determination in his head. "As I thought, this is the only way." The friend next to him saw Shin Kangoo like that, so he ran over to ask, "Kangoo, are you okay?" Shin Kangoo calmly nodded and replied, "I'm fine, don't worry. That guy over there is still very concerned and inquired. I'll go ask them for a break." Hearing that, Shin Kangoo could only helplessly chuckle. If they were the kind of people who would let him rest if he had a problem, then they wouldn't have brought us to this place. In the center of the criminal organization's holding was established here by the Natural Crime Organization. Rookie hunters can use mana, forced to work as slaves to mine mana stones. Shin Kangoo told that guy, "Don't worry about me, just keep mining the stones." That guy frowned. Kangoo. He was thinking about escaping. Shin Kangoo completely interjected that statement. "Forget it, go work, or you'll be attacked by the guard soldiers. And don't do anything foolish." That guy chuckled, scratching his head and ears to show that he understood. "All right." When that guy left was when Shin Kangoo stood up to continue mining the stones. He thought he had warned him and done what he could. He is a character I created based on the cliché. I can't change the novel to escape. While everyone was working hard, no one dared to complain. Then a strange noise suddenly appeared. In front of Shin Kangoo was that guy from before along with a fierce guard. He said, "When I was on guard duty, I noticed the newcomers. There was a wretch trying to escape." The guard slowly drew his weapon hanging on his waist. At the same time, he said to the group of Shin Kangoo witnesses, "Observe carefully. You will be responsible for those crazy actions." The guard ruthlessly beat up that unfortunate guy. Beating to the point of cruelty, no one dared to look back at that horrific scene. Until the painful sounds of that guy diminished. Then his fate was clear. Shin Kangoo stood next to the body of that guy without saying anything, silently cursing in his head, "That fool, I told you not to do anything stupid." The cruel guard smirked at Shin Kangoo. "Why don't you step up like last time? No one will stop you here, so I'll just kill you." Shin Kangoo's reaction was not as the guard said. Instead he just hoarsely said, "I don't care if he dies or not. More importantly, I need to go to the toilet." The guard laughed at that. "What, you pathetic fool, you going to the bathroom alone?" Finally, the guard turned around following Shin Kangoo with the response, "Okay then. Follow me." When the two stopped in front of the restroom, instead of reminding him, the guard threatened, "I'll give you a minute. If you go anywhere else, this place will be your tomb." Entering the restroom felt like entering a morgue, surrounded by corpses of unlucky slaves. Or even they had committed suicide right in here. However, they were not Shin Kangoo's hidden purpose. He searched around while walking. "It should be around here." The guard outside leaned against the door, counting down, 5, 4, 3. After a while, Shin Kangoo finally found it in his memory. He paused at a position and looked down, knowing immediately. The guard's countdown voice kept ringing non-stop. 59, 49, 49, 39, 18, 14. While he was counting, Shin Kangoo successfully drew the demon summoning symbol with blood. As the symbol lit up, Shin Kangoo also chanted a spell. I know you are following me. I know you are going crazy because of the tragedies, hardships, and depressions. The guard outside seemed to have lost his patience. He banged on the door and shouted inside, "Only 10 more seconds, you fool, stop urinating, pull up your pants." Shin Kangoo just glanced for a moment, then turned back to speak to the creature hidden under that symbol. Are you not curious why someone as lowly as me would summon you? Because the truth is, if I stay here a little longer like in the novel, then he will appear. Having heard the call of Shin Kangoo, the supernatural entity slowly manifested before him. Shin Kangoo was both excited and amazed. If I hesitate for another day, the hope that the world is seeking will become further out of reach. Will you say that to convince me? Shin Kangoo became more determined with his decision. He became even more resolute. Respond to my summon. For I will become the wandering dog that you all expect. The one who can use your power most effectively is me. Feeling the energy being called upon increasingly present, Shin Kangoo smiled with satisfaction. I know you will appear. The protagonist has established a contract with Shin Kangoo in the novel. Shin Kangoo shouted loudly, "The Space Raider." A mysterious voice echoed in the huge energy source, indeed a pitiful one. Because you caught my attention, I will lend you my power for a while, prove yourself. Shin Kangoo replied with a touch of contempt, just watch. Shin Kangoo's physical strength indicators continued to rise. At that moment, the guard broke in. He grumbled fiercely, "Are you kidding me?" But all he saw left was a smokescreen hanging in the air. Sometimes appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Sometimes appearing and disappearing like a ghost. He appeared in front of the guard as fast as lightning, making him panic. He's not here. But from right behind the guard, Shin Kangoo had moved at the speed of light, which he never expected. He slashed his throat in one stroke. The surprised guard said, "You scoundrel." He couldn't believe that he was attacked like this. But before he could get an answer to his question, he fell down dead. Shin Kangoo held the blood-stained knife in his hand, sneering coldly, "Thank you, you fool. Thanks to you, today, I have decided to leave this place." The voice of the demon resounded again in the darkness. How interesting, the contract is now complete. Shin Kangoo sighed in relief. With this, I have avenged you. Taking the deceased guard's weapon, he boldly walked towards future freedom, adding the words, "From now on, I will never look back." In the evening when the moon rose high, after dealing with the prison guard, the protagonist Shin Kangoo carried out his plan to escape from prison. First, he got the uniform of the prison guard on duty. Next, he set fire to create chaos, pouring gasoline and using a lighter to start the fire, finally escaping. Trying to avoid detection by anyone, as planned, when the fire broke out, the soldiers quickly ran there in panic. "Look, the fire is burning in front of the prison, quickly call the fire department." "The fire is burning, in front of the building 18, call the fire department quickly." A guard shouted to request everyone to remain calm and follow the instructions of the fire brigade, while allowing people to see the situation at the prison camp. "Quickly, Mr. Guard." Shin Kangoo took advantage of the chaos to blend in with the guards and sneak into the car with 2 other guards. But the 2 guards immediately recognized him as a newcomer. They asked, "Have you exchanged jobs with someone?" He replied, "That's correct. Someone has escaped from Building 18 today." The driver guard was surprised and he continued, "He escaped through the north building, then went northwest past the prison camp. That's all we've found out so far. Have we not left yet? Let's go right now." Shin Kangoo thought to himself that this western path would lead to Mount Chungmyeong, which seemed like a good route to escape if unknown to others. It had many dark corners, complex paths, and few guards. However, there were also difficulties as there were many traps set by the enemies, making it a dangerous path. Since he had prior information, only the new guards knew about this, he would take advantage of this to escape. He continued, "It seems he has fled this way, but we have not found any traces yet." He ran toward Mount Chungmyeong, which is difficult to search. "If we can't catch him, we need to find his body." The driver said he understood. At this point, the car arrived at the prison gate. The gate guard saw it was a guard's car and quickly let it pass. Kangoo secretly rejoiced, finally escaping beyond the walls of the prison. The car drove on a dark road with trees lining both sides. The driver said, "You must be tired tonight, with so much going on chasing the escapee from the 18th building." The other person replied, "Those bastards are stubborn. Killing them might be better than chasing them like this." Shin Kang-gu listened in silence from the backseat, thinking to himself that those men treated prisoners inhumanely, seeing prisoners as nothing. At that moment, a man with a scrutinizing look suddenly asked, "Mr. Guard, have you been working at Building 18 for long?" Shin Kang-gu was nervous, fearing he would be discovered. He replied, "I only started working there yesterday." The guard continued, "Oh, then you must be from Unit 9 in Building 18, right?" Hearing this, the man grew suspicious. "Unit 9 is not in that building. Must have been established yesterday." Shin Kang-gu chuckled, pulling out his sword and said, "That's correct." The man immediately became suspicious. Shin Kang-gu smirked, saying, "Eliminating all of you bastards." The driver saw this and panicked, stopping the car. One of them asked mockingly, "Are you trying to deceive us?" and then unleashed a huge blast of fire. Shin Kang-gu countered, attacking and saying, "Simply eliminating all of you bastards." The driver was shocked, stopping the car. The other person replied, "These bastards are stubborn. Killing them seems like a better option than chasing them." The driver saw this and panicked, stopping the car. "You bastards dare to deceive us," he said, launching a giant fireball in return. After that attack, the driver thought Shin Kang-gu was dead. But as he turned back, he saw Shin Kang-gu jumping out of the car at some point. Then, at a dizzying speed, he appeared by the side, using his sword to attack the driver, who was caught off guard and perished. But afterwards, Shin Kang-gu began to feel unwell, having used too much mana and becoming disoriented. Suddenly, another car came rushing in. Shin Kang-gu was surprised to see that there were patrol troops on this road as well, which posed a significant nuisance. Immediately, he jumped out of the car, sliding down a nearby mountain wall to escape. Suddenly, a voice came through. "Indeed, I didn't think someone could defeat 2 prison guards and escape like this." The vile, low-level character, a mysterious figure appeared, making him feel confused. Shin Kang-gu looked up and saw a man emitting a red glow, with a red seal on his head. He is a hunter with a contract with a constellation. But Shin Kang-gu doesn't understand what his power is. Suddenly he saw a transparent control panel appear behind him, connecting skillfully with the neutral constellation, the constellation power capable of tracking the mana trace of others. Shin Kang-gu thought, "So that's it. How did he find me so quickly? I can see the constellation contracted with this person. By the trace mark has a red seal on the head. For some reason that I was able to do so." Another yellow control panel suddenly appeared in front of Shin Kang-gu. By defeating another constellation, you can claim the victim's constellation contract. It informs you that you can claim the power of this constellation. Shin Kang-gu leaned on the ground and thought, "This is the opportunity for me to win the nebula for the first time." But he has made a contract with the constellation, so his level must have reached level 100, so I need to be careful not to confront him directly. So, thinking, Shin Kang-gu used the strength of his hand to push his body up and run towards the forest, wanting to use the terrain and his own experience to approach and defeat him. That guy arrogantly said he was a low-level fool. When Shin Kang-gu entered the forest, he said, "There you go, trying to escape, I will find you soon." He then used his eyes to scan the forest. With the constellation contract, he could see everything, but when his eyes scanned around, he couldn't see Shin Kang-gu anywhere. He wondered where he had gone. Suddenly, he saw a strong movement at a tree in front. He laughed and said he saw him. He shouted and threw the hammer towards the tree trunk. But when he got there, only the tree was cut in half, nothing else. The guy was bewildered, wondering where he had gone. Before he could react, Shin Kang-gu used a sword to stab him in the neck. Shin Kang-gu said, "You are too conceited with that tracking skill. Now you have to bear the consequences. Because you dared to underestimate your opponent." Shin Kang-gu pulled the sword out of the guy's neck. And the guy fell to his knees. "The system notified that you have defeated the target and acquired the thorough connection skill. Thorough connection skill will now be owned by the space thief. This contract cannot be lost." Shin Kang-gu looked at the skills on the screen. Then the system announced that you have successfully learned all the thorough connection skills. Shin Kang-gu happily said he did it. After receiving this skill, Shin Kang-gu scanned around and thought that there were no more hunters following him. Suddenly, Shin Kang-gu felt darkness around him. He fell to the ground, blood coming from his mouth. Shin Kang-gu cursed, realizing he had pushed himself too hard in this battle. He had reduced the mana transportation level to the minimum to hide his aura when being chased by the guy. Then he transferred all that mana into a mana-absorbing stone. This was necessary. If the mana was transported normally, all nearby mana would fluctuate, and the guy would sense it. Thinking about it, he sweated a lot, so hiding the mana transportation and transferring it to the mana-absorbing stone was necessary. Finally, after hiding his aura, he threw the mana stone to another place. The mana-infused stone hit the tree trunk opposite. The guy only felt the strongest mana fluctuation around him and was deceived. So he was defeated. But to approach and defeat him, he had to use the short jump technique to get closer. With a series of actions, his new body could not adapt, so he was exhausted. Shin Kanggu held his head, thinking that if he had to fight under pressure, he might die right here. Now that he's okay, he needs to find a safe place. Shin Kanggu walked on the cliff and saw a sand truck below. He seemed to have found a suitable place. The sand truck helped him hide his aura. He then jumped directly from the cliff onto the passing sand truck. As his feet touched the sand truck, Shin Kanggu lay down, thinking that in the past 3 days, he had killed 3 guards consecutively while running away, which was not in the original novel he wrote. He didn't know if the future would change, but regardless, he needed to be much stronger. He thought he could do that by using what he knew from this novel. But with this weak body, even knowing many things, he still needed to try harder to change the terrible future when he had to face the end of the novel journey. With this weak body, even knowing many things, he still needed to try harder to change the terrible future when he had to face the end of the novel journey. End of thinking line. Shin Kanggu sat up and looked outside, saying without thinking, "This place is so beautiful and peaceful." At a certain building, the man said that we are going to capture those low-class scumbags who specialize in mana stone exploitation. Don't worry, it's not difficult at all. The man said that he is quite smart. Knows how to perform multiple consecutive actions to cause chaos and then escape from the prison camp using a transport vehicle. At this moment, after getting off the sand truck, Shin Kanggu used the remaining power to walk to the public phone booth thinking silently, "Not okay now. I have used too much mana, can't walk anymore. This amount of mana cannot recover quickly." He thought and then dialed a series of numbers. After reaching the other end, he said, "Hello, I am Kanggu." The other end responded, "Kanggu." Shin Kanggu replied, "Yes, I am in front of Daejeon bus station." On the other end, the man asked if his subordinates had not found that level 10 assassin yet. When he heard the answer, he was surprised to hear that he had defeated 2 level 45 and 55 guards and a hunter with a constellation contract. The man laughed and said, "Interesting, this will make this hunting trip much more exciting. But right now the scene has been shifted to a different place. Shin Kanggu is being treated for his wounds after escaping from his prison cell." After being treated, Shin Kanggu thanks Han Seoyeon for bandaging him like this. For bandaging him like this, Han Seoyeon asks him, "What happened, have you been to the battlefield?" Shin Kanggu replies with a sentence, "Heaven's harvest has captured me." Han Seoyeon shockedly asks, "What do you mean? You've been to where?" "Those hungry people specialize in catching hunters to work there." Shin Kanggu explains that in Mana replied to her that low-ranking hunters like him are caught. Can only become prey for other hunters. In Shin Kanggu's heart, he silently adds another sentence that he still trusts Han Seoyeon and contacts her. Because she still loves Shin Kanggu. At this moment, Han Seoyeon was crying hysterically, crying and saying, "Honey, I'm sorry. If I had been with you more often after that event, you wouldn't have had to go there." Shin Kanggu is still immersed in his own thoughts. At the time of their parting, she was still a new awakened hunter. Now, she is level 150 and has a contract with a constellation. If she had still been with me then, she would have been dragged into the Chungmyeong detention center. Shin Kanggu stands up, pushing Han Seoyeon's arm holding him, saying, "That's enough. Nothing good will come from being related to me now. Heaven's harvest will pay attention to you." Han Seoyeon replies to him, "I'm level 150 now. I'm not someone who would lose to a normal hunter." However, Shin Kanggu still insists that she doesn't need to worry about him. "You just need to use that strength to protect yourself well." Han Seoyeon tidies up her shirt and says, "Here's some money and a phone I left inside, it won't be traced." Shin Kanggu responds, "Your guild seems complicated too." Shin Kanggu silently thinks, "That's right, a guild like that always seems fitting for you at the time and even now." Han Seoyeon asks again, "Do you want to join our guild? Like before, we can." Not letting Han Seoyeon finish, Shin Kanggu interrupts, "Don't get stuck in the past anymore." Han Seoyeon's face is shocked, tears continuously flow. When she calms down, she says, "That's right, that's what I thought. I will listen to you. I have a friend who is the guildmaster, the information is on the phone. Take care, live well." Shin Kangoo smiles and thanks her, saying he will also take care. Leaving the building where Han Seoyeon lives, Shin Kangoo catches a taxi and tells the driver to take him to Daejeon Station. The driver asks Shin Kangoo if he minds if he turns on the radio. Shin Kangoo absent-mindedly replies, "Go ahead." As soon as the radio is turned on, new information is broadcasted. The Zhenghua Guild has attacked the hired mercenary group White Scales. On the day of the verdict, based on White Scales' headquarters in Zhengxian being a safe haven, criminal organizations are rapidly increasing in Gangwon province. On the day of the verdict, the city seemed colder and emptier than ever. A couple is driving on the road. The man says to the woman, "Today feels strange, it's the weekend and there are very few cars." "Right, my love." The woman in the back seat remains silent, suddenly raising her head to reveal only a skeletal face. The man exclaims in horror, "Honey, what's happening?" As if a gust of wind, the woman sitting behind disappears, leaving only the man facing the skeleton monster. In an instant the monster's dagger sweeps across the man's neck, the space filled with his screams of pain. The space becomes unusually quiet. Monsters are rampaging in the city. Reporters state this is on the rooftop of a building in Gangnam, Seoul. As you can see, the sky has turned purple. According to a report, this area has. Before the sentence finishes, a monster swiftly passes by and snatches the life of the reporter. Perhaps there is no need for reporters here, everyone knows that monsters suddenly appear. Dungeons appear everywhere, and in that chaotic situation, those who receive power are called hunters. However, there have been many unexplained events. Those events have made people lose faith in God. Hunters who used to hunt monsters are now beginning to hunt other players. They do so in order to obtain more items. But then they were accused by the entire hunter community. Just as everyone thought doomsday had arrived. A girl being chased by those hunters runs to a dead end. She begs, "Please, don't." Yet those men still do not let her go, mockingly saying, "Someone will think I'm bullying you, don't worry. It will only hurt for a moment." As soon as he finished speaking, the man raised his sword to strike the girl. Suddenly everything became silent, like a savior. Starting from Seoul, he assisted, protected, and healed everyone, and formed the Zhenghua Guild. That is also the reason why everyone wants to go to Seoul. Finishing his thoughts, Shin Kangoo continues to listen to the information on the radio. White Scales has been confirmed by Hunter Jang Shiwan as the responsible group for the terrorist attack at Gangnam Station in Seoul. Shin Kangoo internally refutes the statement above. Bok Man Koi is not a terrorist organization, of course. That terrorist act was not done by them. It's all a drama orchestrated by Jang Shiwan. The driver seems too excited and blurts out to exterminate the terrorist organization, just as expected from Jang Shiwan. The driver also adds that my son just woke up and his dream is to join Jang Shiwan's organization. Despite the driver's story, Shin Kangoo continues to think about his own situation. If he plans to oppose Jang Shiwan by exposing his actions, he will turn himself into a criminal, then everyone will protect him and kill me. The outcome is clear as day. That's also the reason why I want to join the mercenary group, because all other organizations are under his control. Becoming a collaborator of the mercenary group is the most suitable option for me. A girl appears from the building and greets, "I heard about you from Seoyeon. My name is Lee Yerin." Shin Kangoo thinks it's not time to reveal, so he introduces himself as Young Soonkyu. Lee Yerin responds warmly, "Nice to meet you. I have a good job for you." Shin Kangoo cuts in, "I want something with a better reward, you can give me something harder." Lee Yerin is surprised. "What do you mean? I heard you're level 10, Shin Kangoo confirms it. Lee Yerin doesn't say anything, just smiles. Later on, she can't help but burst out laughing. While laughing, she says, "You are really funny. People often say being too brave is risky." Next second, Lee Yerin seems to transform into someone else and asks if you want me to go clean up dead bodies. Shin Kangoo responds with a laugh. Mercenaries rely more on skills than level. Lee Yerin looked extremely fierce and asked, "Do you want me to clean up the body for you?" Shin Kangoo smiled awkwardly, thinking to himself, meeting a character he had spent a lot of effort building a strange feeling. The system board above Lee Yerin's head displays her information. The observer is chaotic, the neutral constellation, a constellation with the ability to distort and obstruct the opponent's vision. Lee Yerin, a support mage with additional skills, has contracted with a mid-level constellation, and is a male lead character who was created to confront the 13 spirits. Shin Kangoo's determined eyes calculated silently, he must gain her trust. Facing the aura on Lee Yerin, Shin Kangoo spoke, "It's not just about having high skills. No need to care about the class level. that is not the goal of the mercenary guild." Li Yaran returned to her original look. Hearing these words, she appeared bored. Sunkyu's reality and ambitions are very different. However, Shin Kanggu replied frankly, prejudices and truths are also very different. Li Yaran smiled. Then she adjusted her glasses and said, "Alright, let's see how far your skills can go." Turns out he wants to test his level. Very soon the two were in battle positions. Li Yaran began to prepare to use the technique. She said, "I will only evaluate one thing. And that evaluation is based on whether you can dodge my skills or not." Shin Kanggu was not surprised at all. He asked, "So you just want to see if I can protect myself or not?" Upon hearing the question, she replied immediately, "Exactly, being able to dodge means you can create opportunities to attack." At this point the power on Li Yaran's hand was even brighter. Shin Kanggu raised his hand to shield. He quickly identified the opponent's skill, which was, using mist to create puppets, and could track his position even in distant places, the mist tracker. This is not an attacking skill, so even if he gets hit, he won't die, but if he can't dodge, he will leave a trace, then the test will stop immediately. After a series of thoughts, he shouted loudly, "Let's start." Li Yaran looked very excited. The girl took a stance preparing to unleash her skill. "Here we go." As soon as she finished her sentence, Li Yaran unleashed her skill towards Kanggu. The mist girl from Li Yaran's technique began to rush towards him. Shin Kanggu smiled, then merged into the mist. Li Yaran stood outside, observing, not understanding what had happened. Having a bad feeling, she turned around with a worried expression on her face. Shin Kanggu had climbed up the wall behind her at some point. Li Yaran saw him running on the wall skillfully and thought to herself, "It's impossible. At that level jumping 1 meter is difficult, but he seems very proficient in using assassin skills. A short jump, so he has quite some skill." Li Yaran raised her hand to release another spell. "Can he dodge this one too?" The extremely powerful technique flew towards Shin Kanggu. The mist girl rushed towards him. Shin Kanggu quickly ran. He quickly ran away, but the mist had caught up from behind. Shin Kanggu turned slightly. Suddenly, he smiled. Then he suddenly stopped and also dodged Li Yaran's spell. At this time, the arena became brightened by his recent actions. Facing this type of light, Li Yaran tried to open her eyes to examine. She thought to herself, he dodged again, not to mention. He just did. Instantaneous shift. Shin Kanggu suddenly appeared behind Li Yaran. He drew his sword pointing at her neck. Shin Kanggu's cold voice rang out, "Stop the test here." Although a bit annoyed, she also smiled. Shin Kanggu was somewhat surprised. He thought, "She is faster than I thought. No wonder she is the commander of the mercenary guild." Li Yaran turned around and asked him, "Have you been trained before?" Shin Kanggu replied decisively, "No." Li Yaran extended 2 fingers to lower his sword. She firmly did not believe and said, "Lying to a level 10 person cannot have those movements." But Shin Kanggu did not answer his question. "So have I passed the test yet?" Li Yaran replied with a smile. "Then, I think I can entrust you if you are at level 50. Shin Kanggu put the sword back into the sheath. He just said one word, "Good." A moment later the car carrying Li Yaran and Shin Kanggu moved on the road. Li Yaran observed him through the rearview mirror. Then she broke the awkward atmosphere. "Are you interested in bulletproof glass? Lately, a gunman has been bothering me a lot, so the car has all the bulletproof glass closed." Shin Kanggu asked casually, "A gunman?" Then Li Yaran blushed and said, "Yes, I've been very loved by several assholes." Shin Kanggu silently thought, "A territorial war." A paper was handed to Li Yaran. "This is a wanted criminal authorization paper. I am the person who authorized this paper, it will be very useful for you." The paper was quickly handed over in front of Shin Kanggu. The authorization contained, Osan Jonggi, open prison ruins. Kim Mukyun level 50 as a wizard, requiring the recovery of level 3 item, Vardaro's boots. Looking through the commission task, Kanggu asked, "Do I need to bring him back alive?" Li Yaran calmly replied, "You can kill him. Many innocent people have died under Kim Mukyun's hands already. You can execute him on the spot. The National Security Hunters Bureau would love that." Shin Kanggu grinned eagerly, "Understood, I will start immediately." A while later Shin Kanggu walked alone to the dilapidated city. Li Yaran had told him before, he'll be hiding somewhere, so it won't be easy. Because this place is quite large. Contrary to Li Yaran's worries, Shin Kanggu thought, "But for me, this is not a bad area to start hunting. This is a place that Shin Kanggu used as a hiding place in the novel, so I am quite familiar with this place. There are also several useful intermediate level bosses here. Behind him appeared several white rabbits with red eyes. Shin Kanggu glanced. Here they are. Then he drew his sword, cutting his own hand and letting blood flow. Drops of blood fell down slowly. The rabbits smelled the blood and were excited. They began to change size, becoming more aggressive in appearance, and then they all ran towards him. Shin Kanggu used instant shift to dodge the first attack. He skillfully used a short jump to strike it, repeatedly using the dodge skill to avoid attacks. Then using the sword to strike another rabbit. Just instant shifting. Then a short jump on each one. Very quickly all the rabbits were lying exposed behind Shin Kanggu. Li Yaran had reminded him, retrieve the commissioned item and then do whatever you want. At this moment, a strange character appeared behind Shin Kanggu. Li Yaran had previously asked, "What do you want as a reward?" Shin Kanggu with a determined look replied, "All I need is a special permit to raid the prison." With places with many high-level intermediate bosses. Shin Kanggu chuckled, "This is the best place for me to acquire their skills." Shin Kanggu smirked provocatively at the target, delighted to meet Juventus. As soon as he finished speaking, a system notification appeared, stating that he could steal this target's skills. This masked and fiercely red-eyed guy is his next target. Along with the masked guy's voice, "I will kill you." Shin Kanggu sneered at the mocking guy. "Don't stand there blabbering. Make your move if you're so good." Immediately, he dashed forward, creating a loud sound upon landing. Then, as fast as lightning, he charged towards Shin Kanggu. Splitting into multiple copies, advancing together. He did not back down in the face of the overwhelming pressure from the crowd, instead took a few steps back, anticipating the powerful moves he was about to unleash. The masked guy rushed forward first with his sharp knife, but Shin Kanggu quickly used instant shift to dodge his attack. From observation, he easily noticed that his attacks were merely feints. The real attack was coming from behind, aiming to strike unexpectedly. Shin Kanggu turned around, stepped forward, and truly attacked the masked guy with the knife in his hand, hitting his stomach. As the guy intended to retaliate, he used instant shift and easily moved behind him. This guy was just a mid-level boss in name only, and his direct combat skills were not yet well developed. He kicked his leg. Blood immediately splattered. Then, he snatched the knife from the guy. The notification board appeared again with a ding-ding sound. "Now you are equipped with a weapon." Shin Kanggu immediately used the new weapon in his hand to finish off the masked guy. Blood spurted from his neck like water, and he could only stare in astonishment without a chance to retaliate. Then he vanished. The system notification appeared again, "You have stolen the illusion skill from the target." So he had acquired a new skill. Shin Kanggu, with a handsome smirk, laughed. Suddenly, something fell behind him. He turned around and walked over to pick it up. Far away in a ruined building, a flickering light appeared. It turns out there's another team spying on him from afar. A bespectacled guy who looks naive and a stunning blonde girl. She turned to the red-haired person with a super hot body and said, "Big brother, can you see him? That's a sleeping pill, not just one but two. It's rare for such a thing to happen, right?" So this red-haired guy's name is Jo Young Jae, a level 3 warrior from Osan. He looked towards Shin Kanggu. Unexpectedly he could accurately hit Ventus's weak spot. At this moment, the blonde girl turned and said, "Big brother, I've seen him at the market." Shin Kanggu went to the market to buy Sevuiro ribs, kobold blood, and sleeping pills for monsters, and he also bought a dagger. It seems like he was planning to hunt monsters in the dungeon and do some farming. All three exclaimed, their gaze shifting to a distant Shin Kanggu. The bespectacled guy commented, "That guy seems to be quite skilled at assassination. I've never seen him before." Ju Jungjae, upon hearing this, was also uneasy. With his level, he shouldn't be here. The blonde girl by his side giggled and flattered the big brother, "But he's not your match, big brother. Should we drag him here? If it's the big brother, he can easily make him kneel." "No need," he said, "it will be easier if we just let him do what he's doing, and we'll take care of him later." "Oh, right, big brother, we just need to follow him closely and wait for him to exhaust himself." All three laughed with cunning plans. On Shin Kanggu's side, the system notification appeared, "You are at level 16, the next basic skill is level 20. He stood there, chewing on the medication, his hand pressing on the system board thinking, he had put all his points into stamina. As long as he could handle the innate mana sensitivity disease, he didn't need to allocate points into mana anymore. Now he would put all his points into stamina to overcome this difficult phase. He chewed the sleeping pill and immediately felt a bit more vitality. Sure enough, sleeping pills had a soothing effect, relieving pain and inhibiting mana sensitivity. It is something that is difficult to find in normal dungeons because it grows naturally, making mass production difficult. However, there is only one person in this country who knows how to grow it. And that person is now in Area 0. A place called the DMZ in the past and quite far away, so you will have to prepare and buy as many things as possible. If Shin Kangoo's sensitivities flare up during the fight, he will die immediately. But to do that, I also need a lot of money. As I walk away, I scratch my head. The next scene transitions to a white car. Li Yaran is driving and complaining to someone on the phone. Call's quality last year wasn't this bad. It's getting worse day by day. A voice comes from the other end of the line. They are intervening in that matter, so we can't do anything, especially because she is being affected by the Real Food Association with the Black Lion, so things will get worse. She nods, that could be true. On the other side, they say, it seems she is having difficulty after getting involved with the mob from the Real Food Association. While talking, through the rear view mirror, she notices a black car following behind. But she has been too used to being attentive for a long time, making it easy to handle it quickly. Immediately, Li Yaran turns the car around. She rushes to where there is a lot of trash and debris, causing everything to fall onto the road, successfully cutting off the tail of the black car following behind. Then she immediately turns into an alley, skillfully changing direction and leaves. From the other end of the line, they suggest that she propose a hunter to them. Li Yaran immediately responds that she doesn't know if she can recommend a suitable hunter, Mr. Zhang Shi-wan. A man with white hair slightly smirks and smiles. Continuation of the phone conversation between Li Yaran and Zhang Shi-wan. She smiled and said, I'll take care of it. I don't know if I can find a hunter that suits you, Zhang Shi-wan. I think you will exclude them right from the start. Zhang Shi-wan, holding a list of hunters in his hand, replied, let's change the standards a bit. He continued, first of all, I want to train the low-level ones. Li Yaran thought about what he said, her face serious. She replied, there is a hunter like that. Zhang Shi-wan excitedly responded, really? Yaran continued, but I think he needs more time. I don't want to jump to conclusions. Shi-wan excitedly looked at the list of hunters. He replied to her, your introductions have never been wrong, Yaran. Unfortunately, we lost them due to regrettable incidents. Yaran sighed. She said, the past is the past, so there's no need to worry about it anymore. I will observe him a little more, and if he meets the criteria, I will let you know. She asked Shi-wan about recent information. Oh, right, do you have any useful information? He replied to Yaran, I just happened to get some internal information about some criminal syndicates. Appearing on the screen is a purple-haired man with a handsome appearance, and his gang members seem to have just made a deal with another faction. Shi-wan continued, I will send it to you via email soon. Yaran drove and replied to him, as always, thank you. Shi-wan smiled. He said, no problem. I can help you with this type of information whenever you need it. He looked at a person caught by the Zhenghua clan while talking to Yaran. He replied to her, our Zhenghua clan really needs a lot of talent. A young man with tied hands and a magic lock on his mouth, his face bruised, his eyes looking helplessly towards Shi-wan as if begging for mercy. Shi-wan continued the conversation with Yaran, if you send a skilled person, I will treat you as best as I can. Shi-wan's face smiled full of malice. Yaran sighed and muttered, no matter how high your expectations are, how can you think of someone who has just received their first commission? On the other side, Shin Kangoo was battling monsters. His hand holding a short sword, Kangoo aimed a fatal blow at the monster. It screamed in pain. Apparently the wound made it angry. The monster roared in a hoarse voice. Kangoo took a step back. The monster he was facing was a mid-level boss named Ibria. Its rage reached its peak when it saw the knife Kangoo had stabbed into its hand. The boss continuously bled from the wound. Kangoo managed to retreat to a safe distance. It raised its claws to launch an attack. Kangoo was confident, but not underestimating the monster. Ibria used the all-out pursuit skill on him, but some skill helped Kangoo evade the boss's attack. Its claws pierced through him but did not cause any damage. Ibria looked surprised, showing displeasure on its face. It angrily lifted a large rock to throw at Kangoo. He used the illusion magic skill, immediately running away from his original position. Kangoo thought, the weakness of the pursuit skill is that it leaves too large of a gap when it ends, and I will take advantage of that gap. Ibria shouted loudly, pouring mana into the rock and throwing it at him. As he ran, Kangoo suddenly cut speed and rushed towards the rock. It seemed to hit him, but once again Kangoo used the illusion magic. The boss looked surprised and panicked at him. Kangoo used instant shift to slip behind Ibria. Kangoo delivered a finishing blow, pulling out his sword. and stabbed a fatal blow through the abdomen of the mid-level monster. Ibria let out a desperate hoarse scream and collapsed. Shin Kangoo defeated the monster with a single sword strike. End of the battle. A notification board appeared. You defeated the mid-level boss. You leveled up. Kangoo thought and decided to use all the reward points on physical stats. He would put all points into physical stats again. He also needed to save Solaceum. The notification interface appeared from the corpse of the mid-level boss, targeting skill loot. The skill he obtained this time is Pursuit. The information of the skill appeared on the notification window. Pursuit. Mastery of the skill, max level, can summon a target within a fixed radius in front of you. Kangoo read the skill information and sheathed the sword. He tried using Pursuit. A blue claw appeared on his hand. Kangoo aimed at the dagger. Immediately, the skill helped him grab the dagger. Kangoo analyzed the skill. He said, so I can also use it on objects. And if I use it proficiently, I can also cancel movements. Kangoo gets into position, his hand holding a dagger he just picked up. He jumps up and unleashes a series of consecutive slashes into the air to test his skills. A murmur comes from somewhere. It's this group of three again. They are watching Kangoo from a distance. One person wearing luggage continuously praises him. Look at him over there, he's definitely bold. Jo Young Jae's face shows suspicion and a bit of worry. He thinks, a killer. Killing Ibria without needing a support move. It seems like this guy is hesitant about Kangoo's excellent abilities as he performs a difficult fight without using much energy. The blonde girl wonders, but what is he doing? The guy with glasses replies, I don't know, he's increasing his skill proficiency. The guy with glasses looks towards Young Jae. He asks, boss, should we eliminate that bastard? Young Jae looks thoughtful to the point of ignoring the question from his comrade. The guy with glasses asks again, boss. At that moment he finally snaps, his face starting to sweat. He shouts at his comrades, annoyed, quiet. I said we would target him after he gets tired. The two comrades jump in shock after being scolded like that. The blonde girl shouts. The guy with glasses trembles and replies, yes, I understand. Cut to a small construction site. A scruffy guy appears, his mouth chewing on meat. This is Kim Moo-kyun. He's staring intently at the commitment paper, still chewing on meat. His clothes are dirty, his face covered in scratches. The paper is the terms for Kim Moo-kyun to join the organization. The Black Master has agreed to the conditions for Kim Moo-kyun to join the organization. Just need to transfer internal information to the label for the mercenary group led by Lee Yerin. Next to him are a series of dead bodies lying scattered. He sits comfortably on a dead man. It seems he has caused a massacre here. He throws the meat aside. Kim Moo-kyun soliloquizes, this is good news for me. He holds the paper, smiling. He continues, Lee Yerin was worried while trying to catch me. A map appears with symbols representing the label, the sun and the Black Master. Moo-kyun continues, I targeted the sun, but the Black Master isn't bad either. He puts the paper in his coat, his face smiles mischievously. He says, I'll set foot in Daejeon for the first time in a while. Suddenly his eyes soften. Kangoo has arrived at the construction site. Inside is Kim Moo-kyun sitting comfortably. He looks straight at the construction site. Kim Moo-kyun seems to have realized Kangoo's presence. He smirks to himself, here's another one I can take. He hits the wall with his fist, commands, let's go, boys. At this moment, two fierce creatures with glowing purple eyes and a hungry appearance appear in the form of black dogs. The hunt begins. Kim Moo-kyun informs the two monsters, it's time to eat. Kim Moo-kyun eagerly here, another fish caught in the net. He then grabbed his hand and called, come here, you guys. Immediately, a pack of black wolves appeared with a heavy aura. He said to them it's time to eat. The pack of wolves rushed towards Shin Kangoo like hungry tigers. Not afraid, he took out a piece of meat, causing the pack of wolves to pause. Kim Moo-kyun also surprised what's this? The pack of wolves all bowed to eat the meat that Shin Kangoo took out. He said this species never likes to eat normal meat. Ending his sentence, he pulled out a sword from the space, stabbing each wolf in turn. Kim Moo-kyun terrified, what's this? Shin Kangoo explained they don't naturally like to eat this meat, there's a reason for everything. I specifically prepared this meat to suit their taste. After being stabbed, the three wolves all disappeared. After using the wolves, he also used a cold stare to warn him. If you still want to live, be careful. Kim Moo-kyun angrily scolded, you wretched guy. While also challenging him, if you're so good, come up here. Shin Kangoo fearlessly rushed forward. All right, I'll indulge you. Kim Moo-kyun satisfied, it's good to be prepared, but it seems like you're a bit too reckless. He thought, who is foolish enough to charge straight into the enemy's den. He confidently said, "I'll blow you up right now." Shin Kanggu then activated his eye's mana detection ability. He saw many mana bombs placed around. He set a lot of bombs, but couldn't make it difficult for Shin Kanggu, because immediately after that he continued to activate a short jump. Quickly avoiding all the mana bombs, making Kim Mukin shocked and yelled, "Wait, you wretch." He jumps past all the traps he set. He angrily became furious, "You think I'm afraid of you?" Shin Kanggu glanced at his stats. Tactical chaos, dark clouds, can disorient and obstruct the enemy's vision. Kim Mukin raised his hand and activated his eerie purple demonic power. "You'll be loved by the dark and ominous constellation. I'll show you what hellish dark magic is." Finishing his sentence, he immediately threw dark energy beams towards Shin Kanggu, but thanks to his immediate teleportation, combined with his short jump, he quickly dodged them all. While also realizing he is about level 50, a mage with a support constellation that disorients the opponent. "I know what you're planning next." As if anticipating, Shin Kanggu immediately rushed behind him with his sword. Kim Mukin said to him, "Don't expect to get away this time," and used the thwart skill. Shin Kanggu paused, chasing after him while feeling that this speed was still not enough. Even time is not the right moment to unleash a skill. After a while, catching the crucial moment, he swiftly thrust his sword up to block Kim Mukin's move, making him both angry and surprised. "How do you know the only way to counter this move?" Shin Kanggu replied, "How could I not know? I'm the one who created it." He smirked and aimed his target towards Kim Mukin. He puzzled asked, "What are you talking about?" Ending his words, he was enveloped by Shin Kanggu in a circle of bright blue light. He shocked, "What kind of monster skill is this? Unleashing without warning. How is this possible?" Shin Kanggu explained, "It's not like that, I just simplify the movements." He then rushed forward with the sword to stab Kim Mukin. He shouted in agony, the magic in his hand burst into flames, pushing Shin Kanggu away. Kim Mukin at this moment was surrounded by dark purple flames. He crazily said, "I will burn you to death." Shin Kanggu dodged and calculated. He not only could shoot continuous fireballs but also fire rapidly. He used something to enhance his magic. If that's the case then. Thinking this, he jumped down to hang on the steel columns. Kim Mukin held the dark energy sphere in his hand and aimed it at Shin Kanggu, cursing, "The pathetic guy. Die," and immediately threw the sphere towards Shin Kanggu. The terrifying power caused a huge explosion straight towards Shin Kanggu, making him fall. Seeing this, Kim Mukin gleefully laughed, "Kahahaha. Why would a pathetic guy like you dare?" But then he realized it was just an illusion created by Shin Kanggu's magic. Being played on, he angrily shouted, "You pathetic guy." His power grew even more explosive, the dark light more intense. He struck back at Shin Kanggu. However, he quickly dodged without any injury. This made Kim Mukin unable to believe what nonsense is happening here. But before he finished speaking, he was grabbed by Shin Kanggu and punched again. He cursed, "You pathetic guy. Stab one place. Nearly kill. You." Shin Kanggu drew his sword, causing him to kneel down to the ground. Trembling, he said, "You dog, you dare deceive me." Shin Kanggu replied, "Yeah, that's my hobby. You think no matter what, you won't fall for that trap, that's peak strategy." Suddenly a blue light appeared, making Shin Kanggu wonder, what is this? A blue notification appeared with the message, "Constellation Master, Fast Attack Master, praising your attack tactics. He was stabbed by you and fell down seriously injured, with only Shin Kanggu holding a bloody knife standing and watching him. Suddenly, he was startled to hear a voice praising his excellent tactics. Suddenly, the screen turned green, catching his attention and making him wonder what it was. The green screen displayed a notification from the Master of Quick Strikes Nebula, praising your attack strategy and consuming a small amount of nebula power. You receive a slight buff, express plus 0.1%. However, Shin Kanggu did not expect to receive sponsorship. Although there are countless nebulas observing hunters, sponsors are quite rare. The reason is that sponsorship will consume the power of the nebulas, or more precisely, their strength. Suddenly, a golden screen appeared in front of Shin Kanggu, but he just looked at it coldly. But it only appeared to mock the space thief, a shameful sponsorship from a low-rank nebula. But it continued to mock him, even lowering the value of the contract owner, me. Hearing this, he just smirked and said, "Don't worry about being jealous. Choosing me is the wisest decision you made." He confidently replied, "I will do my best." After hearing the screen, he scolded him as crazy, and reminded Shin Kanggu to focus on the prey in front of him. This terrified the man crawling on the floor, while Shin Kanggu calmly walked behind him. He lightly kicked him and pinned the knife straight into his leg, causing him to scream in pain. He was in pain, pale-faced, and turned around, cursing the wicked guy. "Do you think catching a shrimp like me will make a difference?" His trembling hand pointed at Shin Kangoo, cursing him. "Do you think you can play this trick?" The knife in his hand gradually transformed into a sword. That unexpected statement made him pause. He said that if catching a scoundrel like him could change the world. The image of 3 contemptuous men ridiculing the man sitting helplessly on the ground suddenly appeared in his mind. Angry, he raised his sword and said to him, "I don't need to be here with you then." While he was still frightened, Shin Kangoo's sword swiftly chopped off his head. He died and immediately a red star appeared. At the same time, a green screen displayed a notification that you killed the target and obtained his contract, Chaos Warrior. It continued to explain that the Chaos Warrior is now controlled by the Space Thief and there is no way to escape unless the contract is cancelled or terminated. The entire supernatural power of the Chaos Warrior has been transferred to you. As the sun sets, the sword in his hand disappears. He touches the screen with his hand. He presses the arrow button downwards. The screen displays .t and Underground Chaos, and he excitedly shouts, "Got it!" He cunningly wonders if he should take his equipment as well. He grabs his collar, thinking to himself that he doesn't like undressing men. But that thought quickly gets brushed aside. First, he will just take his clothes. Shin Kangoo takes off his clothes and throws them aside while guessing that his equipment must be valuable. He thought he was level 50, but turns out he was stingy. He invested his money in buying items. Gradually, his equipment consisted of a pair of shoes, an armor, a piece of paper, and a pair of gloves. He puts on the gloves and realizes that he can link this mana chain to his dagger for precision. He puts on the armor and he also knows how to convert it to enhance durability. He also knows that even the ring he is wearing on his left index finger will enhance resistance. That stat is crucial and cannot be wasted. Shin Kangoo holds up the paper item and happily says, "And here it is." The green screen continues to display a notification that this is the Destiny Talisman of the Devil Lord, consuming 1 mana per second when in an awakened state, reducing the skill casting time. Shin Kangoo puts his hand in his pocket and sees the screen continuing to display the item, Bartero's level 9 shoes, level 9 strength ring, elegant gloves. He excitedly says that these buffs are optimal for him. He smirks and nods, saying that he has already taken his clothes, so he will sell all the level 9 items. It will surely be a good deal. The screen continues to announce that he is at level 19 and he hopes that if he reaches level 20, it will be perfect. Immediately after, he confidently walks down the street, even though the sky is as red as blood, with dust flying everywhere. He wonders strangely why there are no monsters. He slowly sinks into his curiosity. Isn't this place supposed to have a lot of thorny rabbits? Suddenly, a bright light flashes in the corridor of a skyscraper, as if it is targeting Shin Kangoo as he walks around with a knife. The image of him entering someone's surveillance came to mind. The blonde girl observes him through the surveillance and immediately tells Jo Young-jae to see his condition and deal with him and steal his equipment. He just chuckles and asks, "Why not?" A person below holds up a bag and looks up at them. Jo Young-jae smirks and nods to him. He cunningly says he received the signal while the bag in his hand keeps squirming non-stop. Suddenly, as he throws the cloth up, he says he used them to play, and he has. So, the pack of rabbits is released and quickly rushes everywhere. Suddenly, one of them seems to sense something, making it hesitate. And it sees blood on his face and targets his throat. Immediately, they go crazy, rushing in and biting. Shin Kangoo is astonished to see the pack of rabbits rushing towards him and he happily says, "Finally, you guys show up." With swift movements, he kills the entire pack of rabbits in just one move. Blood splatters everywhere. The green screen pops up with a notification that you have leveled up and reached level 20. He smiles and thinks he has been waiting for this notification for a long time. The screen continues to announce that you have obtained the basic skill of the assassin profession, multiple stabbing. Additional information screen: due to the capability of your nebula, the skill has been upgraded to blood-drenched stab. Shin Kangoo happily looked at the screen with more information about blood-drenched stab, which can continuously intertwine with the target's health loss index. Above, Jo Young-jae's subordinates looked in awe as he effortlessly dealt with the rabbits in the blink of an eye, wondering how they died so easily. Jo Young-jae coldly replied that it was nothing. After speaking, he quickly stood up and said that this was his opportunity, and that he was currently off guard. Immediately, he lunged forward and swung his sword toward Shin Kangoo. Shin Kangoo quickly jumped back and narrowly avoided the slash. He looked up, wondering who this miserable person was, planning to strip him down or something, as a slight delay in reflexes would result in decapitation. Suddenly, Jo Young-jae became furious, his eyes gleaming, and mocked Shin Kang-gu for being weak. Immediately, he swung his sword again, moving in an instant to attack, and shouted that this time he wouldn't miss. Wherever his sword swung, stones and rocks were chopped into small pieces, but when he swung it towards Shin Kang-gu, he was agile enough to evade the attack. Immediately, he dropped down to evade the attack and counterattacked with blood-drenched stab. The screen turned green and displayed a notification that blood-drenched stab had a limited recovery ability of 10 turns. He silently thought that he would need to use this move several more times. Suddenly, he felt a presence behind him, and Jo Young-jae sneered and asked if that's what he called an attack. As he spoke, he swung his sword again. Jo Young-jae's subordinates followed suit, sarcastically saying it was useless. Their boss was a fierce warrior and would only get stronger with each battle. After their remarks, he swung his sword forcefully towards Shin Kang-gu. He tried to attack him, but Shin Kang-gu agilely evaded the attack while thinking that of course he must be strong, being a fierce warrior. He looked at the frustrated Jo Young-jae and swiftly prepared to counterattack. But then, he realized that there were significant openings in his attacks, and immediately attacked him. As they turned around, he swung his sword and mockingly said that he should give it his all. Come on. Hearing that, Shin Kang-gu laughed and thought to himself that he could stab him 4 more times at least. Suddenly, he rushed forward, causing Jo Young-jae to raise his sword in preparation to attack. Surprised to feel the aura behind him, Shin Kang-gu swiftly used Assassinate, revealing his image in front of Jo Young-jae. Taken aback, Jo Young-jae clenched his teeth and said, "Kook." Shin Kang-gu continued to use the skill Stealth Chaos, leaving him bewildered, and asked what's wrong. Immediately, he unleashed blood-drenched stab, repeatedly stabbing and making it impossible for him to see. While Shin Kang-gu moved swiftly and launched continuous counterattacks, Jo Young-jae swung his sword continuously and complained that he couldn't even focus, those cuts were useless. Hearing that, he stopped and turned to look at Jo Young-jae, who stared back at him and said he could see through him. Jo Young-jae gritted his teeth, enraged, and bloodlust flashed in his eyes as he asked if he was done playing his tricks. Suddenly, he felt that something was strange about him. He wondered what he was thinking, unable to believe that those superficial cuts had drained his energy. Far away, his subordinates stood there watching Jo Young-jae gasping. The blonde girl asked what happened to their boss, and he, wearing glasses, said there's no way, he. Jo Young-jae, in a fit of rage, roared that the more he stabbed, the stronger he becomes. Jo Young-jae, furious, snarled, and his eyes revealed a bloodthirsty look as he asked if he thought he was done. Finally, Shin Kang-gu used the skill Subdue, which made him panic and say what the. His knife swiftly came down and stabbed into his heart, making him scream in pain. Looking up, he told him that even if he's a fierce warrior, he's still just a human. If he loses too much blood, he will die. Afterwards, he collapsed to the astonishment of his subordinates, but Shin Kang-gu stood there indifferently as if it were normal. After seeing their boss die, the remaining 2 ran away immediately and shouted, "Damn it, run, he's no ordinary person." Shin Kang-gu, holding the charm in his mouth, watched them and mockingly said those miserable guys even dare to run, their eyes are in chaos. Osan's national security agency must have collapsed. Then, his red star appeared, and at the same time, the screen displayed a notification that he had killed the target and obtained his contract, the blood contract. He knew that the guy was bloodthirsty, so he laughed and wondered how the taste of the bloodthirsty one would be. He coldly laughed and said he had obtained 2 contracts in just 1 day. He looked up at the sky and said that the heavens should also consider sponsoring him. The golden screen appeared and scolded him as a crazy person, to which he could only laugh bitterly. A blue screen appears with text, "You have killed the target and taken his contract with the bloodthirsty person. You, covered in blood, wipe the blood off your face and look at the main character on the screen. His name is Shin Kang-gu and he is feeling very pleased. I have obtained both constellations in just 1 day," he says. The text continues to appear on the screen. The bloodthirsty constellation, the neutral constellation. The more power you lose, the more immune you are to psychological damage. The main character is very satisfied. A constellation that can increase mental state. That's good. Then, he walks over to the man with red hair who is lying on the ground. His glasses have fallen right beside him. The main character speaks as he walks, "You have obtained many useful items. This valuable magic resistance ankle bracelet, these shoes that increase speed, and this glove that increases physical strength. If I wear one glove on one hand and a disposable glove on the other, it would be perfect. Just one more task to complete, right? In the evening in Daejeon, the surrounding high-rise buildings are still lit, and cars are still moving on the road. Wow! A brown-haired woman named Lee Yerin exclaims as she looks at the items in her hand. You got a lot, Shin Kangoo. I'll give you a good price for them. She continues, I didn't expect you to find Vartaro's shoes so quickly. Thank you. The main character sits across from her at a table, silently listening. The woman laughs and reveals the truth. The first mission was just a small challenge. Only half of the people succeed. Right now, the main character starts sweating and thinks to himself, so that means a 50% chance of dying. HMPH, it's all thanks to her cold and calculating brain that she has a high success rate in difficult missions. Then, Lee Yerin pushes some papers towards the main character on the table and slowly says, as promised, I will allow you to enter a dungeon with many mid-level monsters. Here is the information about it. She briefly introduces the information on the paper. This is the Wind Hill located at Gapyeong Station. There are 4 mid-level monsters and 1 main monster. The main character is still engrossed in reading the information on the paper. Lee Yerin then asks, do you like it? The main character chuckles and thinks, in that dungeon, there are 5 skills I can steal. Then he puts the paper down on the table and says, reserve a spot for me tomorrow. Then, the main character's hand drops the items, and he asks, by the way, do you buy and sell items? Lee Yerin looks surprised as she looks at the items on the table and replies, Shin Kangoo, you have so much. I will give you a good price for them. Then she hands him a stack of paper on the table and says, then let's move on to the next mission. The main character points to a paper and says, let's start with this name. Lee Yerin agrees and begins the introduction. This is the escort mission of the National Security Agency. A long-haired man with a green head wearing a black hat and hanbo. His name is Hyo Yung Tae. He is charged with stealing national property and causing injuries. The reward is 300 million won and a free dungeon pass for levels 100 and below. Lee Yerin's hand holds up the wanted poster. She asks skeptically, it's very difficult to find his hideout. Can you do it? Aside from being seen near Yongpyong Station where no one usually goes. The main character nods confidently and reassures her, no problem, I have a way to find him. The scene changes, and the main character appears in a small street. He silently thinks, after selling the items I don't need, I earned 250 million won. Now that I've earned money, I have to create more escape routes. Next, the main character picks up the phone and calls someone. A voice answers from the other side, hello? The main character gets straight to the point and replies, I want to buy 10 solicium. The location is Yongsan Station. A brief image of an old man with a white beard flashes through the other end of the phone, and he replies, understood. After listening, the main character hangs up the phone and looks straight ahead to where he's going. He silently says to himself, there's still some time before my dungeon conquest. Let's have a drink and gather some information. This place is Club Hades. Right now, inside, the brown-haired man with excitement swings his sword straight into the chest of the black-haired man, and then the black-haired man screams in horror, and falls while the nearby guests cheer. The brown-haired man with a laugh holds up his sword, clearly showing his victory. Place your bets, kill him, some excited people say. Meanwhile, the main character sits at the bar counter, puts some money on the table, and orders a drink. A glass of solicium is poured. A red-haired bartender named Benny, who doesn't understand, asks, 1 glass of solicium. But she still holds the money and says with a smile, I didn't expect someone to order that. Its taste is quite unique. The main character replies, that's my preference. The red-haired bartender doesn't ask anything else and turns to the bar counter, saying, wait a moment. The main character puts his hand on his chin and thinks to himself, from here until now, in clubs like this, bartenders often have useful information. Of course, that's not verified information, so he turned his face to the other side. His eyes narrowed in surprise and he silently wondered, what is that woman doing here? That is a short-haired woman with purple eyes, wearing tight clothes and black gloves, sitting with her legs crossed. That is a short-haired woman with purple eyes, wearing tight clothes and black gloves, sitting with her legs crossed. A hunting dog Sohee. Could it be that Thien Thuk has begun to follow his own trace? Shin Kangoo swallowed. A hand brought water to him. Bartender Benny said, I've never seen anyone as handsome as you, it's a pity. It'll probably be hard to see you from now on. The main character asked, why? Benny laughed and continued, I've only heard rumors, but Then she leaned in closer and whispered, "It seems that Thien Thuk is aiming to take over this club. Their plan is probably to arrange hunters here and send them into the mine. That's Thien Thuk's characteristic method of recruiting people." The main character looked at the glass of water in front of him, silently thinking. He then raised his hand to drink, "So that's why Cha So-hee is here, can't even drink in peace anymore. Hurry up and go." After drinking, the main character stood up, but a sudden noise startled both Benny and Shin Kangoo to turn their heads. The main character laughed bitterly, "Damn it. I'm in trouble." A guest suddenly stood up and looked at the unfamiliar intruders, Thien Thuk. Bartender Benny's face panicked and quickly fled the scene. Another guest with a frightened face continued to ask, "You guys came all the way here?" One of the intruders wearing black clothes and protective glasses said, "Be careful with your actions. They are all good specimens." As they spoke, the intruders began to move forward and subdue the guests. Someone punched in the stomach. Someone was controlled with a knife. One of them looked at the main character and mockingly asked, "What are you looking at, do you want to die?" He swung his axe, but accidentally chopped into the throat of one of his accomplices. He didn't react fast enough and was puzzled. "Damn, how did this happen?" The main character used his teleportation skill to escape behind the black-clothed person, and then used a knife to cut his throat. This caught the attention of Cha So-hee, who was observing. She touched her chin and exclaimed with delight, "Oh ho." Then she quickly jumped forward towards the main character. The main character's face froze, surprised to see her approaching him. The person known as the dog huntress So-hee smiled excitedly and began touching her chin. She whispered softly. Then she forcefully wiped towards him. Quickly, she drew a knife from her side and threw a powerful strike. He was surprised, his eyes widened. Then the knife quickly flew towards his back and stabbed straight into the chest of a soldier who was planning to attack him secretly. The soldier let out a scream, and before he could react, So-hee rushed forward and struck him on the shoulder. He cried out in pain, his eyes wide open in disbelief, saying, "Why did you do that?" Then he was hit and thrown away, hitting the wall and groaning in pain. So-hee's eyes were icy and emotionless. Shin Kangoo stood behind her, unable to understand. What is she trying to do? So-hee turned back and looked at Shin Kangoo coldly, saying, "I have never seen you before, but I like the look in your eyes. Which guild do you belong to?" So-hee slammed her hand hard on his shoulder. He had no expression on his face. "I don't like being tied down," he said. So-hee smirked and said, "Even better. Let's talk business then, of course." She turned her head and looked at the assassins behind her, saying, "After leaving this place." The assassins were confused. So-hee didn't understand what was happening. What happened? Has the plan changed? Why did the spies attack us? So-hee gave orders to the people with mouth-shaped earpieces. Attack. Everyone was surprised and didn't understand what was happening. Then, she quickly rushed forward, shouting loudly and catching them. The male lead remained calm and thought silently, this is all part of her plan. Suddenly, So-hee stood in front of him with a sweet smile. "I will help too," she said. Shin Kangoo understood her thoughts and thought to himself, she wants to test her powers. He didn't hesitate and pretended to agree with a cheerful smile. Then he saw her rushing forward to attack the soldiers, so he quickly followed, firmly holding a knife. He struck the soldier with a strong knife, causing him to scream in pain. The person next to him saw his comrade being stabbed and fell down in fear. Then, he shouted to reassure them, now he is unarmed and can't attack. Suddenly, he raised his hand high and the knife returned to his hand. He gracefully twirled it in midair and then used the knife to stab and cut off the hand of the shouting man, who then fell to the ground. After landing, he quickly turned and cut off the neck of another person, surprising everyone present. So-hee turned her head quickly, her eyes wide in disbelief. She couldn't believe it was a telekinetic move. He remained calm, ignoring the looks of others. Shin Kangoo tightened his grip on the bloody knife and looked at So-hee from behind, saying, "Let's find a way to escape." Then he turned and ran quickly to the emergency exit. The soldiers in uniform saw this and shouted loudly, "He's running." A man climbed on a table and led the chase, and So-hee gave orders to the soldiers through the earpiece to chase him quickly. The leader shouted, "Handle the others in the hall." While running, So-hee said, "Aren't you an assassin? Don't you also use magic?" Hearing that, he smiled and looked at his glove. "Magic, huh? That's good," he said. "This will connect with the dagger," he said. He glanced at her and smiled faintly, thinking, "Think whatever you want, it's up to you. There's no need to reveal anything about myself right now." After reaching the emergency exit, he saw that the soldiers were chasing him from behind. At this time, the bar started announcing, "Attention, attention to all customers. Currently, there is an intruder from the Dark Society causing chaos in the club. The crazy invaders violently murdered the customers, they brutally tortured and then humiliated them. The despicable scum, just imprison them. The broadcasting station continues to report the situation. The police are trying to suppress them quickly. Returning to the emergency exit, the soldiers jumped off the stairs toward Shin Kangoo and used a hammer to strike toward Shin Kangoo, but he quickly dodged. Then he quickly counterattacked by using a knife to stab through the soldier's throat. And then used a pickaxe to hit the soldier's neck directly. Suddenly, a notification appeared in front of him. The disciples of justice have punished the hypocrites and admire them for using the power of the constellations to increase your experience by 0.1%. Shin Kangoo smirked and thought, justice, how ridiculous. He dashed forward quickly to avoid the attack of the roadblock soldier, but before he could counterattack, Cha Sohee threw a knife forcefully into the soldier's forehead. Shin Kangoo secretly thought, such weakness can also exist in this world? Who cares, I can respond to that gift. The hired soldiers saw Shin Kangoo confidently charging towards them, their faces dripping with sweat, extremely afraid. One of them threw a strong axe towards Shin Kangoo. He quickly dodged it, the axe struck the wall hard. Shin Kangoo used it as a stepping stone and rushed forward, against the three villains. He used a short jump technique, gripping the knife tightly, charging forward swiftly. The three villains had their necks severed, they continued to contemplate, disciples of justice. Then he landed perfectly. Cha Sohee approached and pulled the knife out of the soldier's head, thinking, just as I thought. Shin Kangoo forcefully kicked open the emergency exit, looking at Cha Sohee pointing outside. Cha Sohee smiled and said, I found the right person. After stepping outside, they looked at the starry night sky and breathed in the fresh air. The soldiers dispersed, shouting loudly, thoroughly searching. Cha Sohee and Shin Kangoo hid behind a wall, watching the soldiers run past. Cha Sohee asked, what do you think about working in a place that's more free than a guild? Cha Sohee's face couldn't hide the joy as she handed a business card to Shin Kangoo. The salary is quite good too. Shin Kangoo smiled and snatched the business card, turning around, I'll contact you after resolving some issues. Cha Sohee watched Shin Kangoo's figure as he walked away. Cha Sohee walked and spoke through the walkie-talkie, yes, master. We're done here. Cha Sohee smiled and said, the investigation is easy, just tell the name. Cha Sohee smiled slyly. Shin Kangoo of the Chungmyung Detention Center, right. The short-haired girl said yes, sir. We're done with the mission here. She looked at the mess in front and replied on the phone that there was some trouble indeed. Then she added, but I think I will do well. Investigating with me is simple, just need a name. The person on the other side mentioned a name, and the girl responded that it was Chungmyung Detention Center. You said it was Shin Kangoo, right? The scene switches to a busy subway station. Shin Kangoo steps off the subway with thoughts in his mind. According to Han Sohee's reaction, I'm not yet wanted. But from now on, I should be more careful in Daejeon. It's quite annoying when the scope of influence of the real world is expanding due to the opening of the dungeon. Recently they have been monitoring trains going to Gapyeong. Instead of going straight to Gapyeong Station, I will go through Yongsan Station. Shin Kangoo thinks it's reasonable. Shin Kangoo tears off the tape sealing a box on the shelf. Seeing the object inside, Shin Kangoo exclaims that it was conveniently delivered. Shin Kangoo secretly thinks that in the novel, Shin Kangoo uses a hidden space near the train station to receive Solaceum. Thankfully he knows the way there. While lost in his thoughts, Shin Kangoo is brought back to reality by the loud voice of the person next to him. He says, this is the best part-time job. Just a little performance, and you can enter the dungeon. He says energetically and catches Shin Kangoo looking at him, then curses loudly, what the hell are you looking at? Then he quickly turns and goes somewhere else. He continues talking on the phone. He says it's nothing, just come to Yongsan Station. Shin Kangoo hasn't even had time to figure out what's going on and can only sit silently watching him leave. At this time, on a large LED screen of a building in Seoul, a man is being projected, surrounded by bright flames. Seoul is the place where the Junghwa Guild dominates. The dungeons there are as safe as collateral. And at the same time, Seoul is also where the National Security Agency operates. At this hour, there are hundreds of people outside the building waiting to enter. Shin Kangoo looks at the knife in front of him and thinks that ever since these big supermarkets opened, the prices of goods have become extremely expensive. But since shopping here is 1.5 times larger than elsewhere, it's not too bad either. Shin Kangoo holds up the knife. It's called Blue Sky's Joy. It applies to level 5 hunters with a strength level of +50. Shin Kangoo mutters that from now on, he must practice using a sword more. Let's try it. He then holds the knife in one hand and squeezes the stone he was holding. In an instant, the stone shatters. Shin Kangoo is surprised and says it's pretty strong. The accompanying effects are good too. When using this stabbing knife, during a battle within 30 minutes, the recovery speed and resistance ability will double. Shin Kangoo thinks that he is different from others. He doesn't need to worry about mana. But using mana excessively, he has to worry about the pressure range. Shin Kangoo decides, saying he will take this one. While Shin Kangoo is walking, he comes across a family. The child says, "Wow, that's interesting, Mom. Let's have chicken again tonight." The mother responds happily, "This is Seoul, the National Security Agency and the Junghwa Guild will protect us," the father says. Shin Kangoo scoffs silently. It's truly blind faith. In the next moment, a shrill scream echoes. The child who was playing in the arms of his parents is now being grabbed by a man in black. The father desperately begs, "Please, let go of my child." The man in black replies jokingly, "I'm just playing with you, old man." He continued to say that whatever he wanted to request had to be sincere, and he dirtied his hand to show the OK sign. The scared child said, "Dad." The people around now surrounded them, continuously asking about the National Security Agency, HNSA. Someone should call HNSA. Shin Kangoo thought, he really is foolish. I will handle the rest of them so that HNSA can resolve this. Having made up his mind, he said, I will show you sincerity. However, action has not been taken yet. Then, everyone around saw someone and became surprised, saying, Chai Guanhying, the head of Junghwa Association. Chai Guanhying carries the constellation of the Demon Warrior, specializing in swordsmanship and spatial separation. Shin Kangoo was shocked to unexpectedly meet a colleague of Ying Shiwan here. He was not the type of person who would appear for such matters, so why? At this moment, Chai Guanhying pulled out a card and passed it to the person in black. The person in black, not understanding, asked, "What is this?" Chai Guanhying replied, "Take as much money as you want and release the child." Achieving his goal, the person in black exclaimed, "Excellent." Then, he pushed the child towards Chai Guanhying and ran away. The worried father asked if the child was okay. In an instant, Chai Guanhying moved swiftly and appeared in front of the running men in black. Shin Kangoo exclaimed that he was indeed very strong. Chai Guanhying used his swordsmanship ability, utilizing space as a fighting attribute. Suddenly, the space around them seemed to be encompassed by darkness. The scared men asked, "What is this?" Chai Guanhyung's hand, holding the sword, swiftly crossed over one of the kidnappers. Immediately, the person's body split into two, blood splattering. The remaining person, terrified, said, "Oh no." Shin Kangoo recognized him as the person he had met at the train station. The other person, scared, asked, "Did you really kill him?" "Let me go. I followed your instructions, I only had to act, right?" the person said. The people around couldn't hear this conversation at all. Someone wondered what he was saying, and someone replied that because he used his skills, they couldn't hear anything. At this point, he pleaded with Chai Guanhying. Chai Guanhying ignored him and directly killed him with his sword. After killing the two, Chai Guanhying created a black mist around him, and then he assured the people around him that it was safe. Shin Kangoo thought, it's true. Using thugs to deceive trust in Junghwa Association and establish a monopoly power, how convenient. Enjoy it as much as you can. All of your benefits, I will take them all. On the other side, the man in the office said to the short-haired girl, I sincerely apologize for this, but this is all the information we have. This is the profile of the escaped prisoner that you mentioned. Saying so, he handed the paper he was holding to the short-haired girl. The girl took it and looked at it, then said, "So this is Shin Kangoo. How nostalgic. We are acquainted." An unfamiliar voice rang out, "So this person is Shin Kangoo." The red-eyed woman named Cha So-hee laughed while flipping through the investigation documents about the main character. Suddenly, she realized something and said, "Hey, he looks familiar." At this moment, the main character stood in front of the dungeon door looking at two black-clothed, masked guards and said, "I think it's time, can I enter?" A person in black looked back at him, nodded, and replied, "The dungeon initialization is complete." Then he continued, "However, you said you were at level 20. That level is lower than the recommended level, will you be okay?" At this moment, Shin Kangoo thought to himself, if I want to steal the chance from these people, then I must level up. A man with black hair and red eyes appeared in the protagonist's thoughts. Next to him a glass screen displayed the text, "Constellation of the Evil War Spirit. A constellation inclined towards evil, specialized in swordsmanship and spatial separation. The protagonist continued to think, if it continues like this, not only will I lose the opportunity but will also be hunted. My minimum goal must be level 50. Then, the protagonist raised his hand and pressed on the glass screen. If I want to achieve that rank quickly, then I must at least endure this. The glass screen closed. The protagonist confidently smiled and said, of course. After entering the dungeon, the protagonist walked on a desert. In a huge sandstorm, with rocky mountains surrounding, Shin Kangoo covered his face with one hand to avoid sand in his eyes and muttered, "It's hard to see." Then he turned his head back to look at the footprints he left on the ground, thinking to himself, if I don't leave marks, I will get lost. Suddenly, Shin Kangoo paused, his eyes widened looking down to see himself close to the abyss. Almost fell, the path has been leveled, the protagonist sighed in relief. The protagonist felt something was wrong, and turned his head back to look. In the sandstorm, there were many eerie red blinking eyes, exuding danger. Then they slowly appeared clearly before the protagonist's eyes. They were clawed lizards, the protagonist suddenly realized. He then summoned a sword, happily saying, if things go smoothly, I will reach my goal faster than expected. Then he took the sword and charged in. The clawed lizards also began to jump up and order an attack. Currently in another place, Cha So-hee sat cross-legged on a chair focusing on the documents. Beside her a male voice spoke up, although he tried to simulate the process of his escape from the chase. Then, Cha So-hee glanced at the brown-haired man standing and asked, "What's the result?" He also honestly answered, "I think he defeated us with magic." He was very lucky to have deceived a level 100 hunter. Suddenly, the man became fearful and continued, however, the unreasonable thing here is he could predict the next attacks. That couldn't possibly be a level 10 ability. Cha So-hee looked at the circle drawn in blood in the documents, silently for a moment. Then she said, "Thank you." Then she lifted the document board, slowly saying, "Honestly, a few days ago I met that escaped prisoner." The man exclaimed in shock, "What?" Cha So-hee continued, "I predict he must be at least level 100. The man from shocked started to become fearful. "Then what about these?" she furiously questioned as she burnt the document in her hands. "You don't even know his level." Here, the protagonist stabbed a lizard in the belly. It was wounded and cried out in pain. The protagonist, as predicted, pondered, "Just as I thought, I targeted its belly but could only wound it to this extent. If it's like this, how can I catch them all?" Shin Kangoo continued to use his hand to control the dagger to stab the remaining lizards. Shin Kangoo continued to use his hand to control the dagger to stab the remaining lizards. The next second he immediately wounded the last two lizards. All of them were lying on the ground but still not dead. The protagonist smugly cupped his hand backwards and waved his finger shouting, "Come on, all of you." The creatures, provoked, became violent and furiously roared. Then, all at once, they headed towards the protagonist. The protagonist remained calm, thinking, there's one thing to be cautious of when hunting monsters. That's damage. Even if the monsters die, if they aren't wounded, nobody will acknowledge that hunter as the one who hunted them. But what if you can wound the monster, even just a little bit? Seeing the monsters approach closer and closer, the protagonist jumps up and continues his thought, then everything will change. The monsters screamed. They made short jumps. Immediately the protagonist leapt over to the other side of the crack. While the clawed lizards all fell into the deep abyss, hit the ground and died completely. Then, on the monster's corpse, the glass screen displayed, "You have defeated a common monster." The others fell one after another. And the glass screen showed similar messages. Finally, the glass screen in front of the protagonist, "You have leveled up very quickly. You have reached level 27. At this moment Shin Kangoo proudly exclaimed, "It's a success." Currently, at another place, Cha So-hee steps into a room looking at the drawing on the ground pondering, is this Shin Kangoo's drawing? After that, she thought, he has performed the ritual with blood, for what purpose? He intends to summon a constellation. Suddenly the phone rings. Cha So-hee answers the phone respectfully asking, "Yes, master." The voice from the other end asks, "Have you nearly completed the investigation?" Then she slowly walked out of the room and replied, "I'm still investigating, sir. That escaped prisoner is not ordinary." The voice on the phone showed agreement. "I think so too." After that Cha So-hee went on to request in the corridor, "Oh, I need one more person." The other side curiously asked, "For what?" Cha So-hee, recalling just having strangled the man and then incinerated him, angrily gritted her teeth and replied, "The team leader was ambiguous about the escapee's matter. I got angry and killed him." On this side, the protagonist is currently collecting blue stones from the corpses of the clawed lizards. Then he remembered the time he was a prisoner, having to laboriously work in the dungeon transporting these stones. Flipping the stone and saying, "Cha Sohi must also know now that I am the escaped prisoner. I can't be caught that easily." Then he firmly held the precious stone in his hand. Suddenly, behind him appeared a creature resembling human shape, but its entire body is covered by fire, approaching the protagonist. Shin Kangoo smiled. "I've been waiting. The first skill will be acquired here." Then he picked up his sword ready to fight. Above them suddenly appeared a shadowy figure wearing a mask, silently observing, his hand still holding a bow as if intending to do something. No need to exert much effort. Kangoo effortlessly took down the monster in the blink of an eye. The notification window popped up again. "You have stolen a skill from the target, Fire Elemental Transmission." Kangoo smirked. The notification window displayed, "You can upgrade skills based on the power of constellations. You can imbue all weapons with the fire element." Bowman was spying on Kangoo from a distance. He was surprised to think, he has already taken down the intermediate boss so quickly. He was astonished by Kangoo's ability. He pondered, his hunting skills are very adept. Kangoo used a newly bought dagger to stab straight into the intermediate boss. The boss panicked due to the injury. He was furious and emanated a murderous intent towards Kangoo. His plan was laid out in detail. The bowman summarized his plan. First, lure the fire person to the oasis. Using his magic illusion skill, the main easily dodged the move and tricked the boss. The strategy was perfectly laid out. Kangoo easily thought and executed it in his mind, making it throw itself into the lake. The archer even had to be cautious and thought, he's not like a low-level person, no wonder the team captain is interested in him. The archer monitoring Kangoo was due to Yaren's directive. He asked, "You want me to monitor him?" The archer monitoring Kangoo was due to Yaren's directive. He asked, "You want me to monitor him?" Yaren immediately said, "His test results are very good, but his level is too low, which worries me." Yaren requested him to intervene if he's in danger. Yaren smiled and said, "By then, don't forget to list for him the benefits of joining the team." End of flashback. The archer thought, surely he will bring great benefits to the alliance if we help him level up. The young man decided to continue monitoring Kangoo. I should watch him a bit longer. Kangoo continued his dungeon conquest journey. He threw daggers at the monsters, but they bounced off. Their thick shields seem quite hard to penetrate. He assessed, their defensive shields are indeed quite solid. These bosses have formed a firm formation, creating a thick shield hard to penetrate. Kangoo sarcastically said, "Are you trying to prove the meaning of unity by sticking together?" He noticed their ability. He said, "Teaming up to protect each other. Reminds me of what Li Yaren said." Kangoo recalled meeting Li Yaren. He said to her, "I'll contact you after dealing with Hyo Yung Tae." Yaren spoke up to stop him from leaving. "Wait a moment, Sunkyu." She said, "Taking jobs is fine, but have you considered working with us full-time?" An offer from Yaren. She continued, "Dungeons aren't easy if you go it alone." Kangoo was visibly conflicted about Yaren's words. Kangoo smiled faintly. Back to the battle, the main charged, attacking directly into the solid defense shield, making the bosses wary. Kangoo's sharp eyes looked towards them. He exclaimed, "This is why I don't like group work." The bosses shivered at Kangoo's words. He continued, "You see the consequences of relying on others when you can't even manage yourself." Kangoo attacked. He glided past their side. He lashed out a straight blow to the protective shield. Kangoo kept changing positions. The bosses were completely confused by these nimble movements. Kangoo used instant teleportation, combined with blinding strike. Victory seems to have been decided. Continue using underhanded chaos. Kangoo threw the mid-level bosses into utter confusion. He used short jumps to maintain the proper distance. He thought, good, this distance is suitable. Bosses seemed to have completely lost sight. Kangoo thought about the reason he keeps the distance, to use for capture. Kangoo moves agilely. From one to another, he glided past them, combining instantaneous displacement and short jumps. A powerful attack on the defense shield. Kangoo laughed with delight. He had completely eliminated these mid-level bosses. Notification window pops up. You have defeated a mid-level boss. Still one left. It seems angry after Kangoo destroyed all of its team. It angrily charged with the defense shield. Kangoo used instantaneous displacement. Just the moment it could hit him, Kangoo used magic illusion and taunted, "Just kidding. Idiot." He delivered the finishing blow to the boss. Finally was taken down. Notification window pops up. You have defeated a mid-level boss, increased experience points, you've leveled up and reached level 29. Notification window pops up. You have defeated a mid-level boss, increased experience points, you've leveled up and reached level 29. Interface continues to notify. You've received the skills of a defender, sweeper, and midfielder. These 3 skills combined create the defensive shield skill. Kangoo is puzzled about this skill. Interface provides detailed information. The defensive shield is an installable type of shield, existing until broken. Kangoo chews on a regenerative leaf, marvels, interesting indeed, turns into an installable type upon reaching max level. He evaluates the newly received skill. This one is definitely more useful. The distant archer is surprised by his strength. He thinks, he's even better than I thought. Perhaps he doesn't need a team, still it's too early to conclude. Kangoo is advancing towards a storm along with the bright red sky. The archer decides to continue following Kangoo. He thinks, will confirm when he faces the final boss. A figure in tattered cloak with white hair is grinning. Under the red storm it seems he is waiting for Kangoo. Finally meets the boss. The boss with a gaping smile reveals a set of teeth with murderous intent and red eyes under the white disheveled hair. He confidently points at the boss and says, "From the beginning, you were the prey I was aiming for." In the desolate graveyard where trees are dry and thunder roars, facing the white-haired demon Shin Kangoo said, "We finally meet." The demon raises its clawed hands and opens its tooth-filled mouth in a loud laugh. Seeing this, Shin Kangoo points directly at the demon with a steely smile and says, "The very essence of your blood is what I've been after from the start." In the desolate graveyard under a blood-red sky, lightning strikes across. The demon flies up to attack Shin Kangoo. The demon bares its sharp fangs and glowing eyes, shooting dark fireballs towards Shin Kangoo. Shin Kangoo continuously uses short jumps to dodge the demon's attacks, then quickly gets close to it. Shin Kangoo closes in on the demon with rapid speed that forces it to fly high into the sky to use magic defense, while Shin Kangoo continues his short jumps to close in on the demon. Seeing Shin Kangoo getting close, the demon launches an arrow rain attack at him. Shin Kangoo sees how agile the demon is and feels, "It's hard to find a good angle for my strike." The demon quickly fires an arrow rain towards the valuable, quickly pancake rain towards Shin Kangoo. Shin Kangoo uses his speed and agility to dodge while continually thinking, as he keeps unleashing skills in front of him. Above the sky is the demon's magic defense, a large circular shield behind it. So he thinks, magic defense is quite weak from behind. Melee is the best way to kill a mage, so he quickly moves closer to the demon and thinks, I can withstand a few arrows to get closer, but he clenches his teeth, enduring the pain as the arrows pierce him, sure to be afflicted with bleeding. And the true skill of this damned one. If the demon flicks a hand, his body will explode, blood spraying everywhere, the pain running through his entire body. He will be unable to bear it and scream in pain. Blood explosion will surely kill me instantly. So he tries to dodge the demon's arrow rain and thinks, I need another way to approach him. The skills he's been throwing out till now must be all he's got. Shin Kangoo uses narrow jumps to continue moving forward, dodging the arrow rain and looking back at the demon thinking, but I have only shown the narrow jump so far. He doesn't know about my other skills. The demon, seeing his arrow rain miss Shin Kangoo, starts sweating with eyes that can't believe it. Behind a stone wall, a masked person holding a bow watches Shin Kangoo and the demon fight, thinking, they can't deliver the finishing blow on each other. I didn't think it would take him so long to find his opponent's weakness. Suddenly, the masked person opens his eyes wide. The demon's hands release a massive energy, his eyes filled with blood veins, baring his teeth and giving a fearsome look with purple lightning surrounding his face. Seeing this, Shin Kangoo, happy with provocation, smiles at the demon. The person must be starting to feel uncomfortable. Provoked, the demon keeps launching dark fireballs. Seeing this, Shin Kangoo readies himself. I will show you a surprise right here. Shin Kangoo continuously uses short jumps to dodge dark fireballs and closes in on the demon. He smiles triumphantly, finally. He is within my striking range now. Suddenly a green hand appears grasping the demon's magic defense. Seizing the opportunity, he gets closer to the demon and says, hello. The demon uses all its inner power, eyes bulging, opening its mouth wide screaming. Shin Kangoo feels wary. Damn it, he's still casting magic even in this dire situation? A loud explosion sounds with energy light covering a large area. A loud explosion sounds with energy light covering a large area. The demon suddenly stumbles backward. The demon's magic defense is within Shin Kangoo's striking range. He smiles, you were too overconfident. Shin Kangoo raises his hand high. Uses a shield to protect against the lightning strikes headed for him. Then he quickly transfers fire element from his dagger and quickly plunged into the demon. The demon, caught off guard, spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His eyes were resolute, ablaze. After his words, the demon's body suddenly exploded into flames, screaming in agony. It gradually dissolved into the air. Shin Kanggu, holding the dagger tightly, his lips curled in a smile, said, "Transferring the fire element isn't too bad." The masked figure hiding behind the rock was extremely surprised, thinking, he alone defeated Alicia at that level. The report to the leader has already been sent. After the masked figure ran away, an image suddenly appeared. "You have obtained a skill from the Blood Fury target," Shin Kanggu joyfully said. "I have achieved my main goal by coming here with this." He glanced behind and scoffed, "That guy has also left." The screen continued to display, "Your level has greatly increased. You have reached level 32. You have received the basic skill of the Assassin's Acceleration." Seeing this, Shin Kanggu exclaimed, "I am leveling up quite well." The screen continued to display, "The Master Nebula Fast Victory strategy praises your tactics. You've been given a small buff from the nebula's strength, giving you a 1.3% experience speed boost." Shin Kanggu continued to chew on the leaf, thinking, an unexpected reward. "I didn't know the sponsorship was on such a large scale." A golden screen appears. You continue to boldly distribute rewards. The remains of the demon completely dissolved. A stone and a book appeared. Shin Kanggu, seeing this, smiled and said, "This will be useful." The scene shifts to a voice resounding in front of an apartment building, "Yes, sir." Cha So-hee walked next to a tall man smiling and listening on the phone. "I have found where Shin Kanggu has stopped." Cha So-hee stood in front of the door, confidently speaking to the boss. "Yes, it has been locked, but I will burn it to ash." Cha So-hee continued, "I will go in and search for anything that can be evidence," flames igniting in her hand. Hearing this, the person inside the house was very worried and hurriedly messaged the landlord to report the situation. "Heaven's Truth has found your house. They are looking for traces of Shin Kanggu." Outside, Cha So-hee continued to talk to the boss, "But I guess it's empty." Hearing this, the boss pondered. Shin Kanggu told Cha So-hee, "He makes me want to have him even more." Cha So-hee said, "I'm sorry." Inside the room was chaos as the subordinates scrambled through everything. The boss continued, "His willingness to move into dangerous areas shows he is both cautious and daring." Cha So-hee confidently said, "I knew you would like him." The boss uttered a sentence that stunned Cha So-hee. "His caution is a useful trait you lack, So-hee. He will be a competing candidate for the excellence title with you if he comes to work for me." Cha So-hee was utterly surprised, thinking, competition. The boss asked, "So, did you find any clues then?" Cha So-hee replied, "Yes, there are. I think the owner of this house is a hunter." Han So-yeon stood behind a wall under the apartment building, holding her phone calling someone. She was extremely nervous dialing the phone. In the room, Cha So-hee continued to report to the boss, "You can be pleased now. I think we've found a lead." The scene shifts to Shin Kanggu coming out of a cave, thinking, following Alicia was really important. Matching the Blood Fury skill was the main reward. But the items dropped aren't bad at all. Shin Kanggu continued to reflect. Selling the magic stone fetched a good amount of money, 50 million won, and I can't forget about the bleeding effect upgrade ring either. Above all, I also got a skill book. It's not for my character class, but now I have a way to utilize it. The book allows you to learn an additional skill. Stepping out, he thought, now I'm quite far from the dungeon, so my phone is starting to get a signal now. Shin Kanggu took out his phone and saw a message from Han So-yeon. "I've been trying to call you but you didn't pick up, so I decided to leave a message. Heaven's Truth has come for you. I think they are after you." He smiled and said, "Good thing I was warned. You are agile, Father So-hee. It turns out it was because of the message Han So-yeon sent you, saying that the investigators were coming for you. She thought they were watching you." Her warning also gave you some food for thought. Shin Kanggu marveled at the information power of the Flower Society, truly a prediction from a satellite guardian of the Yunghwa Society. If the investigators are tracking you, they will soon come for Li Yeren. He put the phone back in his pocket and thought, to Yeren, "I'm just a business partner, she has no reason to protect me anyway, after all I already refused to join her. But Lam Dong is having a conflict with the investigators over Daejeon, so there's no reason for them to help or hand over my information either. Just like the plan, I will capture Yung Tae. But currently I need some help with this. Upon arrival, I will meet that person first," Shin Kanggu thought as he stepped onto the subway. The scene changes to a high-rise brick building that looks somewhat old along with the blinding bright sunlight. The scene changes to a high-rise brick building that looks somewhat old along with the blinding bright sunlight. Perhaps he felt worried because of the words of a man in a green suit. He told him, "I understand you're very committed because this involves your countrymen, but let it go. The Yongpyong case is beyond our authority anyway. Let that go." Yu Zhongjae stands in front of the last house in the file, checks his watch for information, then steps inside. He stands in front of the house door and knocks twice. "Is anyone home?" Immediately the door opens. A man with blonde hair appears asking, "Who is it? Is there someone named Hyo Yung Tae here?" After hearing the name Hyo Yung Tae, the blonde-haired man asked back in confusion, "Who's that?" "I live here alone." But Yu Zhongjae paid no attention to the man's answer, glanced inside his house, noticed a gun. He turned to ask, "Are you a hunter?" The man turned back to look at the gun on the table. "Oh, you mean my gun? I have it because this world is very dangerous. I'm pretty sure everyone has one." Getting no further, he turned his back to leave disheartenedly saying, "So tiring. Nothing here either." But who would have thought that behind the door? Gun suddenly appeared in the blonde man's hand. He smirked, slightly opened the door intending to shoot from behind Yu Zhongjae. But instantly, with his keen senses, he drew his sword and slashed right beside the door, cutting off one of the blonde man's fingers. His fierce eyes looked at the blonde man saying, "Turns out you are a shooter as well. You should have used a silencer," he said while stepping into the house, and the blonde man hastily fled. But was kicked in the back by him. His hand was already bloody, now his leg was even more pitiful. The blonde man lay on the floor, he then placed his two swords at the man's throat. Voice full of threat, "Tell me what you know about Hyo Yung Tae. I only saw him exactly once at the commissioning meeting. He said he would kill anyone who looks for him. All I know is he's hiding very well, and although I don't know who, he's got someone quite scary backing him." The blonde man lay on the floor in fear. He asked again, "Someone backing him, huh?" The next scene transitions. Yu Zhongjae stands thinking with folded arms underneath a building, murmuring about why the investigation into Yongpyong was halted. Suddenly from afar, the Seoul National Security Agency approaches. What are they here for? Yu Zhongjae quickly hides behind a pillar. "I still can't go back yet. I need to evade and return to my hideout." Is this the way? Those people are getting closer and closer, making the guy standing behind the pillar increasingly anxious. Suddenly a voice from behind rang out, "Are you from the National Security Agency? I have something to ask." Turns out our protagonist has arrived. Stepping forward to cover for Yu Zhongjae, allowing him to escape, the officers say, "Oh, we are on a mission, so." "Oh, please don't do this, a hunter robbed me on the big road over there." After saying that, he points in the opposite direction, diverting the police's attention, successfully helping him leave the area. He still thought he was just lucky. But in reality, Shin Kanggu knew and was merely helping him on purpose. The next scene transitions again. Yu Zhongjae stands in front of a rather high bookshelf, taking down a photo album. But his attention was drawn to this picture, with him and a friend. Memories come flooding back. The scene is him and his friend happily talking. His friend jokingly says, "Congratulations, you're going to Seoul, right? God, you really did it. I heard they really have a lot of power. Unlike other places, are you working with the Junghwa Guild too?" "Haha, stop it," he said. "Alright, let me go. I will handle responsibilities here, don't worry and just go. I'm here and you're in Seoul. Uphold our justice in your own way." He stared at the photo without saying anything, and the fleeting memory fades. Suddenly Shin Kanggu appears. He looks at him and asks, "Are you the guy from before? How do you know about this place?" Name, Yu Dohoon. Current estimated level 362. You work for the National Security Agency? Shin Kangin moves towards him, speaking as he walks. Yu Zhongjae is startled as his information is exposed. "You investigated my background? Or are you also from the National Security Agency?" He answers, "No, but I know why you are looking for Hyo Yung Tae. What do you think about working with me?" The scene transitions again. In the room, Lee Yeren is negotiating with a masked person. "It's a shame that you're not interested in the mercenary guild. But you are quite excellent as a contractor," she says and smiles happily. "Perhaps in a while, I think I can introduce you to Zhang Shi-wan." Suddenly, there's a loud bang, startling both of them. Outside, the voice of the guard transmits, "How dare you, come back right now, what's with the noise?" Lee Yeren frowns, looking toward the door. Turns out it's Cha So-hee. She barged in, causing a ruckus. The masked person, upon seeing Cha So-hee, thinks of the word, hound. Lee Yeren stands up from the chair, face turning fierce, glaring at the person opposite. "How dare you sneak in here, Cha So-hee? No need to be so wary, I didn't come here to cause trouble today." Cha Sohee says, fanning a piece of paper in her hand before presenting it to Lee Yarin, asking, "You've seen this person before, haven't you?" Lee Yarin grabs the paper and is shocked. Turns out the paper contains the profile of Shin Kangoo.